Good morning, Orod.
Good morning, Soma. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm very good. The other day I was watching, the last episode, and I was wearing a t-shirt because it was hot. And
Yeah.
this week I'm with this turtleneck because it's cold. So
Well, it's really cold in Sydney as well. So I think Sydney, Melbourne goes together on this
yeah,
one.
it's sunny though, but crisp, you know.
It's raining in Sydney.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what we gonna talk today? What is the another myth? Do you have
Oh,
anything?
it's actually, like a recent query I had from someone. You know how people have date-driven backlogs in in today's world where like the date-driven by that I mean like mostly regulatory and compliance
Hmm.
items on their backlog which needs to be done within a certain amount like date. So someone was just had a query and they were asking about it like if they have a backlog
Hmm.
but everything is date driven, can they
Hmm.
apply Kanban to it? So what are your thoughts? Let's have a chat about that. What do you think?
Yeah. So things with deadlines always challenging. So definitely it's a good question.
Mhm.
So as you know, one of the work item type that we have in Kanban, we call it fixed date, and that's the type of work with the absolute, hard deadline. Because first of all, if you ask people, everyone think that, everything has a deadline, right? But most cases, they're not really hard deadlines, right? But there are different types of work, as you said, especially, compliance, regulatory, those kind of work that must be done by a particular date. So in Kanban, we have different types of work based on the, stakeholders and stuff like that, and we call them classes of service. So one of the classes of service is a fixed date, so the work item with a absolute hard deadline. So what we can do in this scenario is and I like to simplify it, right? Because some people not quite familiar with classes of service and stuff like that. So let's just keep it simple. So let's say we have a backlog. Some item had hard deadline, some item don't have hard deadline.
Mm.
And our focus in this episode is the item with hard deadline. So one thing we need to do is to make sure that when we design our board, we need to have one swim lane for this kind of works.
Mm.
And the easiest way is to look at these types of work, for example, compliance, and see how long we spend before historically. And let's say we say 80% of time we spend 1 month, for example, right?
Mm.
So what we need to do is to make sure that we pull those work at least 1 month before the deadline to be able to guarantee at least 80% delivered by the time. And that's because historically 80% of the work took about 1 month. So if we started 1 month before, then we should be able to deliver it at the time that customer expected. But the challenge is we might have some other work in progress.
Mm.
And then people say, oh, we need to stop this kind of work and then we need to work on those work because we have hard deadlines. So I think we need to be mindful that, first of all, don't spend all our capacity on, other types of work. Always leave some capacity for, work with the hard deadline. That's one thing we need to do. And another thing about we need to be mindful is that um, when team is working on those work with no deadline, um, they need to be aware that there are some work with the hard deadline, and historically we spend about 1 month. So don't leave them to the last week or last couple of days, right? So we always need to look at the backlog, make sure they are in the right order. So when the capacity available, then we can pull some of those work with the deadline, hard deadline. Sorry, I talked too much. Uh, do you want to add anything? And then I probably continue.
That's a good
The
start.
capacity allocation, basically, I think it's important. Leave
It is.
some capacity for the normal work and some of them for the work with the hard deadline.
Hmm. So, in past, I have worked with teams whose backlog is all about deadlines.
So
So from
everything in the
there,
backlog had hard.
exactly. And it is because, let me give you some context and whoever is listening. So there will be some team who has been given either, like it's a risk mitigation thing
Mhm,
because a tech stack update, let's say, like, the organization wants to move to a new, different technology stack. And there is always a deadline for that because the old tech stack will be out of support or something like that, which is a huge risk if you think about it. Or if it is a bank, then there will be always, the annual regulatory and compliance things
mhm,
that needs to be done. Now, with these date-driven things, the trick is that you really need to get the notice in advance. So what I mean by that is that if there is a date-driven a deadline, then the deadline is not going to pop out of thin air.
mhm,
There will be, like an indication of it. So my advice always or recommendation would be whoever is the product owner, the team manager, team leader, who is looking after the work basically, make sure to, like keep it more like, be alert on those and
mhm,
talk to your stakeholder to have an agreement that yes, we can deliver things on time if
mhm.
we get some kind of notice. Because in most of the teams, the capacity is limited, not most, all of the teams,
Yeah,
because no one keeps adding members to the team,
absolutely.
right?
Capacity always limited.
Always limited. So there, what we used to do in that team that I'm talking about is that because everything is either a risk mitigation item, or if we don't get that done, there will be a huge fine
Mhm,
the organization. So everything becomes real fixed state because the fixed
mhm,
state, the whole idea about that classes of service is that the impact will only show after the date is crossed. So if the
mhm,
gone, then only you start getting the impact. So it could be anything reputational, monetary fines,
mhm,
or anything like that. Now, when that is the case, you always have to have that vision of the whole team, like your capacity. So that's
mhm,
real important. So, and how much can you do? So that's where the lead time really becomes very important, what you were
mhm,
talking about, that you know that some items are going to come to this team because this team has that skill set of, doing that kind of work. So what do you do is that you start having that visualization of the timing,
mhm.
how much have
Exactly.
you done, and
Yeah.
also have that interaction with your stakeholder way in advance, be more proactive, where
Mhm,
you can go to your stakeholder and set that SLA that hey, our team has taken 3 months to deliver this thing, so we know it is coming. Is it going to come to us? If that is the case, we would like to know, like even more in advance, let's say 5 months in advance, so that
exactly.
we can deliver that in on time.
That's that's actually really good because that must be an agreement, or in Kanban we call it policy, between the delivery team and the stakeholder. So stakeholder needs to know that if they want something delivered by a particular time, they need to make sure that give everything that delivery team required, you know, I don't know, 1 month, for example, before the deadline. That should be an agreement between these two parties, right? Otherwise, stakeholders can come 2 days before deadline and say, okay, you need to deliver this one, right? And
Yeah.
I understand every now and then it can happen. But if it always continuously happen, right? Every time stakeholders 1 week before come with a high priority, you must deliver this one, and then team has to stop whatever they're working on and then jump on this and get it done. That that shows actually this is good. I mean, not good, but it indicates that there is something wrong in our process.
Yeah.
So either the policy is not clear, or maybe stakeholders not agreed. Maybe we didn't think about it before, right? So we didn't think that, oh, we need to also work on the compliance as well and stuff like that.
Mm.
And that needs to be communicated between, you said product owner, if the team has a product owner, as
Mm.
early as possible with the stakeholders. Ask
Yes.
the question, is there any compliance? Is there anything that must be delivered by that time? If it is, then okay, what we require to deliver it and when we need that. That needs to be communicated as soon as possible. And then product owner or scrum master or team lead continuously go back to stakeholder and follow up. Because
Yes.
as you said, it's quite common that these kind of things not ready early enough for the team and come to the team very late or push to the team very late, and then it has an impact on everything else that they're working on.
Definitely. And to add to that, Orod, whenever it is a fixed date in real sense,
Mm,
there will be indication way in advance about it because
mm,
fixed doesn't, just come up like that. Like the
mm,
fixed date has to be there for a real reason. And the whole idea about a fixed state is that,
mm,
like it is coming and the impact will start showing after the date is gone. But when you know it is coming, that's where the interaction and the communication needs to be more proactively done because it cannot be waited like till the last moment. Now, the important thing is that so the team that I was working with at that time, they're it was a date driven. It was like all compliance, regulatory. Some team might
mm,
find it really boring, but the interesting bit is that those items are not expedited. So
mm,
they come to you and say, "Do it now," when you know the date is like 6 months away. So
mm,
it is, and if someone is doing that, I would really recommend ask questions,
mm,
understand why that is required now when you all know that the risk is going to show only after 6 months or 3 months, whatever. There is a date attached to it. So these are the few things. So people make things expedited, right? Like
mm,
it is again going back to the basic thing about the trust. So
mm,
why our stakeholder tries to make everything expedited, there is a bit of psychology goes there. Like why? So
yeah.
the more you start visualizing things, the more you start calling out things way in advance, that trust is built because they can see the progress.
Mm,
Fixed it, date driven. If anyone is coming to me and saying date driven, then it will definitely have advance notice
mm.
about work is coming. It could be anything. It could be like a feature launch, which has nothing to do with
Yeah,
compliance or regulation.
exactly. So it's quite common that, for example, communication, right? So a lot of times product is ready, but the communication and comms and stuff like that's not ready, right? So if we release it to customer, then customer surprised, what is this? I haven't expected, right?
Hmm.
So all these things needs to be aligned. But that reminded me actually something. I think I'm not a psychologist, I don't know, but for some reason, I think we always, when we look at something which, for example, needs to be done next 6 months, we always push it back. It's not important, right? So I do with my bills always, right?
Mhm.
So the last day, or sometimes they send the SMS me, oh, that's overdue, and then I was, oh, I forgot about it. Because I always, have 6 months time. I'll pay later. I'll pay later. I'll pay later. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if we don't want that happens, we need to think about it in advance about everything. So delivering the product is not just some code needs to be deployed to production and released to the customer. It has a lot of other things. It has communication, it has compliance, a lot of other stuff that needs to be ready, and then we release it to the customer. So, and because they always happen, right? So this kind of thing, it continuously happens. So we need to think about all different aspect of product delivery, not just the code, because we always think about, okay, code, 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 write code, write code, write code. But it's not just writing code, it's also testing, it's also quality, compliance, communication, training, a lot of other things that needs to be ready, and then we deliver it to the customer. So I think it's quite important. And one thing before we wrap up, I wanted to mention, if you have a backlog and everything has fixed date, then that's okay. But if you have a backlog that some item has fixed date or deadline and some of them don't, probably need to use something to visualize it. So when we look at our backlog, we see that, okay, this 5 item has a deadline. You know what I mean? So maybe different color, maybe add a, I don't know, flag or something like that. And also if people use, Jira or any other tools, they can also write some simple query. Show me the, item with the backlog that, for example, needs to be done next
Mm.
month, right?
Yeah.
So we look at those and filter them and also prioritize them rather
Yeah.
than, push them back and then they have to be expedited. And, I think in one of the episodes we talk about expedite, and expedite is an evil or something like that. I think that was the topic.
That's true.
So
Yes.
if we have everything, if we have to expedite everything, that means the upstream Kanban is not working well, and we need to either, improve it, or maybe we don't even have the upstream. We need to, add it to the workflow.
Yeah, that's right. But going back to the basic question that we had in the beginning of this session, yes, Kanban can definitely be applied to date-driven backlog because Kanban does have a classes of service which is called fixed state. And when you have fixed state, the idea is to be being more proactive
Mhm.
about the communication, about understanding and having that agreement with your stakeholder that you do need some notice before you can deliver that on the due date, which is definitely important for the business and the customers. So having all these things ready before you start working is really important,
Mhm.
which will require everyone to have that, ownership of that as well. So it's again a cultural thing that it is not only the responsibility of one person to deliver, it's the whole team being more proactive and finding out that what is happening with that. And
Absolutely.
just to add to that, this I have seen that working in some teams. If something is repeating every year, which is a
Mhm.
compliance or a regulatory item, think of automating the process up to a certain extent. I know in many places you can't do the full end-to-end automation because of many constraints. That's okay.
Mhm.
But this is where, like experiment with things where you can be more creative in automating some of it, which might help you to save some time, manual time. So that is another idea that I've seen working in many
Mhm.
places.
Nice. Very good. Thanks, Soma. And thanks everyone for watching and listening to us. So today we talk about uh, if Kanban can help to deliver work with the absolute deadline or not. And if you have any experience with that, please let us know, put some comment. And yeah, and as always, we come back next week.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Orod.